Hello everybody, my name is Summer and I'm doing the next EdTalk in our series. For this one, it's going to be part 1 of teaching the standards. The first part of the book discusses the implementation of Common Core state standards in the state of Maryland. Common Core was ushered in as many employers felt that students were unprepared for a dynamic work environment. And as one employer stated on page 8, the employees had no ability to transfer knowledge from one task to the next. So, Common Core advocates for teachers to teach students specific habits of mind, such as perseverance, applying past knowledge to new situations, and striving for accuracy, to name a few. There's a more comprehensive list on page 12. Table 1.2 has a full list of the habits of mind and the descriptions of the habits of mind. Part of the application of the habits of mind is done through thoughtful lesson planning. Cooperative learning is the next implementation, and this is where these type of strategies are beneficial to students and have the added benefit of meeting the benchmarks set forth by the Common Core state standards. The benefits to cooperative learning lessons are stated as positive interdependence, individual accountability, and appropriate use of social skills. And those social skills, accountability, and interdependence, help to develop positive personal relationship. These in turn can be used to help improve students' academic performance, because now they're not just self-reliant, they also have peers that they look forward to seeing and that they look forward to working with. So the cooperative learning strategy facilitates that dynamic interaction. When you look at using a classic approach, you set up teams of 4 students, and you're going to have 1 very intelligent student, 2 students who are about average, and 1 student who's weak. Groups set up in this way help to orchestrate effective cooperative learning. The ideas presented here are relevant to my practice as a secondary educator because I want students to be able to problem solve without me. Oftentimes, they get to some sort of hurdle and they stop. And these things can be large hurdles that they just can't figure out how to navigate or how to troubleshoot, or small ones. I once had a student who said, "Miss, the printer didn't print my paper." And I asked the student, "Did you get a message on your screen telling you why?" And the student responds, "Yeah, it says tray 2 is empty." So I kind of look at the student and say, "How do you propose to solve this issue?" And the student then responds with, "I guess I should put paper in the tray." So it's stuff like this where these are really simple troubleshooting tasks, but sometimes students, it presents a great challenge for them. So the goal is that they are able to troubleshoot through these issues, whether it's figuring out how to make your paper print, or if there's an issue with the internet. There's all sorts of small troubleshooting tasks that they should be able to kind of evaluate and think through. So you'll see here that I chose the little cooperative learning group where the students are kind of pointing out what's going on the paper and speaking to each other, asking questions, and working collaboratively. So the next section of the book talks about how learning happens, and it starts off with a quote from Albert Einstein: "The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination." So they talk about, in this section, about how students are asked to be creative in their thoughts by brainstorming and analyzing varying perspectives. Students should learn to question what they already know and challenge what the known is. So I chose this photo here that talks about the different perspectives on a shape. There's many different examples on the internet of what you can use for varying perspectives, but for this particular one, it shows that this shape is both a square and a circle, just depending on what angle you decide to shine the light from. So what we want students to start doing is, instead of questioning them using words like what, which simply ask them to identify information, we want to start using questions like why or how, because these deeper questions tap into their brainstorming and their critical analysis skills. But we also want to ensure the student is considering the real-world applicability of their thought. So they may have a certain idea about something, but is that realistic? Are there any constraints, whether it's monetary constraints or social constraints or geographic constraints? Those are things that you want to have the student consider, especially when we're talking about implementing all these 21st century skills from the other books. Those are the things you want to have the student consider. So this process of asking them how and why questions leads to a deeper understanding and usually a new interpretation of what was previously thought of as known. This section of the book also devotes a couple of pages to attachment theory, which I thought was really interesting, and the effect on self-esteem and learning of the student. Where the more secure relationships between parent and child, the better the learning outcomes for the student. What was interesting is that the evidence suggests that this theory can also be applied in the teacher-student relationship as well. So when you foster a classroom environment that is secure, supported, and personally connected to the teacher, then the students, according to attachment theory, are going to do better in the classroom. There's more information about this on page 42 and 43. I want to leave it on a note of one quote that I found on page 46. Every child who walks into your class does the same thing. Your positive classroom climate, as demonstrated by your voice, body language, classroom displays, willingness to accept your own mistakes, and ability to treat students' mistakes as a natural part of learning, determines whether your students' prior negative schema will be reinforced or replaced. And I really think this hits home with everything that we've been kind of reading about from the Ayers text and teaching the taboo to what we talk about in class, is just fostering that learning environment for the student to ensure that they are retaining the information and able to apply it later on when it comes to jobs or a skill for a job. All right, thank you for your time.